this week. It was a good week that lived up to the billing. Chiefs taking their first L of the season as a dog in Buffalo. The Bills now a half game back for top seed in the AFC. The Steelers held off the Ravens to open up the gap in the AFC North. Lamar Jackson held in check for the first time all season. Pittsburgh won with 6 field goals and no TDs. And the words needed to properly describe what happened in Detroit, not suitable to broadcast over the air by the FCC. So we'll just tell you the final score, 52-6 in favor of the Lions over the Jags. Detroit after that victory, now the favorite to win the Super Bowl at ESPN BET, plus 375 as Kansas City fell to plus 450. Ravens at 6-1, Bills tied with them at 6-1, and a couple of teams lurking, like the Steelers at 22-1. Interesting. Let's go back out to Stanford Steve as promised. What, if anything, are you doing with this Lions team right now, Steve?
Enjoy it. Embrace the journey. I think you missed your mark if you don't have action on it now. They're the best watch in the league. I've said it for weeks now. What they bring to the table from the physicality standpoint on both lines of scrimmage, the playmakers, the mix at running back, Goff with how good he's been in. But I feel like you missed it. If you like him that much, it looks good for home field. But, it's too late for me to get in on it. But, man, are they fun to watch, and they deserve all the credit for how they're built, front office, coaching staff, organization, all good things. I can't say enough good about that team.
All right, Erin, Steve saying it's too late. Would you agree with him?
Yeah, it does feel too late. I mean, I think Stanford Steve was on the desk with us over a month ago? Yeah. We were talking about this. So, I mean, they've been great since the bye. This offense is averaging 39 points per game in 6 games since the bye. Like, they are just blowing teams out of the water. Now, have they played the best competition? Absolutely not. Now, of course, with the Super Bowl bet, you're thinking, can they actually go to the Super Bowl and get it done? Getting through the NFC should be easy. Their toughest competition, I'd argue right now, is the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm not just saying that as a fan. But to go and actually have to beat a team like the Bills or the Chiefs or the Ravens, that's not going to be easy whatsoever. So what I'm most interested down the stretch for the Lions is how they look December 15th against Buffalo as well as December 30th against the 49ers. That game on the road, not that is going to factor into the handicapping too much, but in the sense of I want to see if they can beat a really, really good team.
Completely fair.
With Buffalo beating Kansas City yesterday, the Lions are plus 175 to have the most wins this season. They're behind Kansas City. The schedule, you mentioned 2 games. The Niner game on the road late in the year, that's going to be winnable. That Niner team may just be done by then. The Buffalo game comes at home. The rest of the schedule is relatively easy. They've got the Packers at home. They got the Bears. Forget about it. If the Eagles continue to push them and the Eagles schedule is relatively easy, they might have to play in Week 18 to secure that bye. Yep. And that could get them home. They're sitting there tied with Kansas City, but they're plus 175 and the schedule's nice. I would look at that right now.
All right, you mentioned the 49ers, Joe. Let's talk about the NFC West because they took a surprising L to the Seahawks yesterday. And you have Arizona at the top of the division. The other 3 teams a game back at 5-5. What do you make of the Niners? They're plus 175 to make the playoffs?
Yeah, that's the key number because that's the bookmakers for the first time all year throwing their hands up saying, all right, everybody else had it right. The Niners aren't as good as the power ratings that we've had for them throughout the course of the season. They've been the favorite to win this division. They've been a big favorite to make the playoffs all year, despite the struggles, despite the injuries. The power numbers have always been different than what the record indicates. And now at plus 175 to make the playoffs, despite the fact that the division leader only has 1 more win, that's the books telling you, all right, we're starting to realize that this team doesn't have the juice that we thought they did at the beginning of the season. So moving forward, there might be a little bit of an overcorrection there, which could put you in a spot to bet on the Niners. I'd still be looking to Arizona. They're minus 130 to make the playoffs this season. Even money to win the division. They got a hand up on a couple teams. They're undefeated, 2-0 in the West. They're just sitting pretty right now, and they've got a big matchup coming up with Seattle. I think they're going to play the Seahawks twice over the next 3 weeks or so. This is the team to keep an eye on with the way they're playing, and they got the bye at the perfect time.
How would you compare betting those futures with the team to win the NFC West to make the playoffs versus Jonathan Gannon in the Coach of the Year market? He's plus 650. He's made a big move, but would you rather just bet on that versus some of the team futures?
So it's a good question because normally you would want to look to see how the things correlate. Like Arizona surprising people winning the division. If you like that bet, all right, well, what do we see for Jonathan Gannon? What do we see for Kyler Murray for MVP? Is there anything else in there? The problem is Coach of the Year is relatively deep. Yeah. So if he's going to win, he's going to have to take out guys like Jim Harbaugh, who are having a fantastic year. And your boy Mike Tomlin won't lose. I'm trying to get him to lose one. I'd like the Andy Reid bet to get home, but that's not going to happen if Mike Tomlin keeps doing what he's doing.
Moving and shaking in futures markets after Sunday. Coach of the Year has been volatile. We were talking about it. Dan Campbell moved up to second favorite after demolishing the Jags. Mike Tomlin, though, as Joe mentioned, your new favorite at 3-1. The odds to win the AFC moved a lot as well. The Bills jumping up to plus 275 after their win over the Chiefs, though Kansas City, I should say, still favored in that market at plus 185. Speaking of the Bills' win, Josh Allen jumping Lamar Jackson as the new MVP favorite. He's listed at plus 150. Lamar now plus 185. Patrick Mahomes falling all the way down to 12-1. All right, Market Watch with the squad. Erin, let's talk MVP first. You want to give someone their flowers in this market?
That'd be Joseph.
Oh.
Get up. On Friday morning, I was watching it. He was on the desk with everyone. He was saying if you like the Buffalo Bills to win against the Kansas City Chiefs, you could also grab him in the MVP market. You made a great point. Now, of course, it's moved, so I don't recommend that you bet it at this price. You kind of lost out on it. I know we talk about futures markets all the time, but I do think you did miss out on it at this point. I mean, he was great in that game against the Chiefs, 262 passing yards, also 57 rushing yards and a touchdown on the ground. I mean, he's really surprised me this season. I thought he was going to take a step back without Diggs being on that offensive line, but I mean, he's been great, and they're 9-2 in a tough AFC. So hats off to him, and also hats off to Joe for calling that as well and bringing that up to people's attention on Friday.
It helps the MVP case when you lose your star talent and your team doesn't drop off and wins.
It's actually gotten better.
This is the year to demonstrate the value. So, all right, like to your point, if Allen's moved enough and it's not worth a bet, which I think a lot of people would agree with, same thing with the Lions, let's ask ourselves, where's the next move going to be, right? Like, what's the next thing that's going to happen? December 15th, Buffalo is in Detroit. Jared Goff was sitting up there at 40-1. He's back down after that 400-yard performance, sitting around 7-1. If the Lions have one loss going into that game and they hammer the Bills and Goff looks good, he's back in play. Here's another one to file away. Next Monday night, Chargers hosting the Ravens. Justin Herbert just kind of lying in the weeds at 25-30-1. Chargers are winning a lot of games. And normally you got to be a 1 seed or a 2 seed to win this thing. But I'm telling you right now, if Herbert and the Chargers beat the Ravens on Monday night, that's going to be the conversation the next day, so keep that in mind.
I like that Justin Herbert one. That is something to consider with the way that he's playing. No one's really talking about him. Then he has the primetime game last night against Joe Burrow, and now people are starting to get in there. All right, the Coach of the Year market is the one that's still very fascinating to me. We were talking about Jonathan Gannon, but I think you can look at the odds board and make a legitimate case to give a vote to any of 6 or 7 guys. Is there anyone that stands out to either of you?
Go for it, Joe.
Well, Andy Reid was the pick that I made earlier in the season. That ends up taking a big freaking hit and comes all the way back because they lost over the weekend. Mike Tomlin sitting up there at 325. I think it's his to lose. As good as Campbell's been doing, Mike Tomlin has both the wins and a big narrative on his side. The manner in which he navigated the Russell Wilson-Justin Fields situation, that's the definition of coaching. It's the definition of really good coaching. If you work your way down, again, Jim Harbaugh's the name that stands out. Chargers at 13-1 to win the AFC. That stands out. These are all things you should be considering heading into next Monday night against Baltimore. They're vulnerable. If you didn't stay up to watch that Charger game last night, they tackle well. They run the ball well. They're well coached. The coach knows when to push the buttons on the goal line. That's a team that has a great resume for the postseason and having success on the road. They've got a good offensive line as well. Like, a lot of boxes are checked there. That's the next team that's going to start getting a lot of attention.
13.
I mean, great point. Also, this just market's so subjective. I mean, the fact that Andy Reid's never won it is enough for me not to bet into it.
Never won with the Chiefs. He won in 0-2 with the Eagles, but never with the Chiefs.
It's one that I think we're going to have to keep talking about, though, each and every week because of how crowded it still is to see who we can pick off, knock off, add to that list. It is a very fluid market. Coming up, NFL we go. Try to get ahead of some Week 12 lines. Steelers-Browns on Thursday night. Pittsburgh only favored by 3.5 despite their win and Browns loss yesterday. Weather expected to be an issue in Cleveland on Thursday night. The Chiefs will try and rebound and likely will against the Panthers. Spread is a doozy. KC favored by 11. Chiefs have failed to cover 4 straight, though, and Pat Mahomes hasn't been great when he has to lay a lot. Detroit looking to stay hot as they head to Indy. Lions-Colts game has the highest total on the week, 50.5. So could be a fun little shootout with Anthony Richardson returning to life in Week 11. Joe, what's an early Week 12 number that has your attention?
So take a look at what's happened for Thursday night's game between Pittsburgh and Cleveland. Games in Cleveland, massive weather concerns, was 40.5. Then 39.5. We talked about that this morning. Then we wanted to come on air and present it at 36.5. And then during that time, it dropped down to 35.5. 37's the last key number, kind of on the way down. So now that we're through that, you've pretty much extracted everything. Issue is snow, issue is rain, issue is wind. But there are still other ways to play this game. Cleveland's team total is 16 points. Like, you think they're going to score 17 against this defense in those conditions? You want Jameis Winston throwing the ball in those conditions? You're probably going to need to run the ball, which leads me to point 2. Look at all the rushing props for attempts. You're going to have running backs who are going to be running the ball all night long in this weather. So I'd be looking at rushing attempt over props, Najee Harris, Jalen Warren, guys like that. I'd also look for Cleveland's team total under 16.
You talked